Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. We continuously hear, and they let us know very assiduously, the number of Russian losses in the counteroffensive. They always tell us how many Russians died, how many pieces of equipment they were destroyed, how many meters the Ukrainian army advanced in the counteroffensive, but we never hear how many Ukrainians how many casualties they have, or how many, tanks and armored vehicles and other equipment they have destroyed by the Russians, because probably they have none. So sometimes it's good to hear from the other side as well, so you complete your information baggage. So let's see here. Sputnik will tell us how many Ukrainians died and what are the losses of Ukraine's army since the counteroffensive started. So doesn't mean that they are telling the truth either. It's just a different take on things. So Sputnik: Ukraine lost some 7,500 people on contact lines since June 4th. Russian Ministry of Defense states. So Ukrainian troops have lost about 7,500 military, both killed and injured, on the line of contact alone since June 4th, the Russian Defense Ministry said on Wednesday. And I'm quoting: in total, since June 4th, the Ukrainian armed forces have lost about 7,500 people killed and wounded on the line of contact alone, not counting the dead military personnel as a result of the use of Russian long-range precision weapons and aviation in the depths of Ukrainian territory, end quote, the military said in a statement. Over the past day, Ukraine unsuccessfully conducted offensives in the South Donetsk, Zaporozhye and Donetsk directions, continuing to suffer losses, the military said. Losses of the Ukrainian army in the Donetsk direction exceeded 205 military and 10 pieces of equipment over the past day, the ministry said. In the Donetsk direction, near the three settlements of Pervomaiskoye and Petrovskoye, Russia successfully repulsed two enemy attacks, the ministry said in a statement. And I'm quoting: during the fighting, the losses of Ukrainian troops amounted to more than 205 military personnel, 2 armored combat vehicles, 7 vehicles, and 2 D-20 howitzers, end quote, the ministry said. Near the Vremevka ledge, Russia also repelled 2 attacks, the ministry said, adding that Ukraine lost 11 armored vehicles, including 4 tanks. Ukraine lost more than 800 soldiers and 20 tanks in the South Donetsk and Zaporozhye directions in the past day, the ministry said. And I'm quoting: in total, in the past day, enemy losses in the South Donetsk and Zaporozhye directions amounted to more than 800 Ukrainian military, 20 tanks, 4 infantry fighting vehicles, 15 armored combat vehicles, 2 US-made M777 artillery systems, M-STA-B and D-30 howitzers, as well as a Grad multiple rocket launcher combat vehicle, the ministry said. Russian aviation prevented the attack of Ukrainian assault units in the Zaporozhye direction near the settlements of Zerebyansky, the ministry added. On Tuesday night, the Russian armed forces carried out group strikes with sea and air-based long-range high-precision weapons at places of concentration of reserves of the Ukrainian armed forces and foreign mercenaries, as well as warehouses of ammunition, weapons and military equipment of foreign production, end quote, the ministry said in a statement, adding that all assigned objects were hit, while the Ukrainians claimed that only civilians were hit and most of these attacks were destroyed in the air. The Russian armed forces carried out missile strikes on Ukrainian reserves, foreign mercenaries, as well as warehouses of foreign-made equipment over the past 24 hours, the Russian Defense Ministry said on Wednesday. Remember, all this comes from the Russians, obviously. So they're all good. If you read the Ukrainians, the same success they had. And if you read the Americans, the Brits, and the free media, the corporate media, let's put it straight, you're gonna find out that the Russians are losing again continuously, and they have been losing since last year, 24th of February 2022, somehow, and the Ukrainians are winning. Even though in the past month or so, I started observing a little change in the Western reporting. Out of, let's say, 10 articles that I'm looking over, about between 8 and 9 are the same as they always were, like Ukraine is winning, Russians are criminal and all that. And between 1 and 2 out of 10, they come with, well, maybe the counteroffensive doesn't go that well for the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians have some losses here and there. So I don't know if little by little they try to bring it, because this is the way it goes. These guys have no heart here. It's not about, oh my God, when you hear them, yes, for poor Ukrainian, for democracy, freedom, Zelensky. No, once their interest, and their interest is not located here, okay? Just maybe the level of something else, but not for the Ukrainian people. The moment the interest changes in a way that, hey, I don't think it's profitable to support these guys, they're gonna jump aboard ship in a second. And they're going to change everything. Say, well, things changed. Yesterday I loved you. Today I hate you. That's the way they are. I've seen this before. When they just change from one day to another, the big love into a big hate. Why? Because somehow that entity did not do what this guy wanted. But you know, you did for that country or did for that entity this amount of things, but then you fail or you don't want to do this. Well, that one negate the whole thing. Well, that's the way it is. You have to be always on our side. You can't have your own, independence and free thinking and so on. So here, this is according to the Russians. Remember when the Russians over there said that they launched missiles, precision attacks on. I covered that yesterday. The Ukrainians said no, they attacked Odessa and they destroyed only, I think there were 4 missiles launched from sea base, and they destroyed 3 out of 4, or it was 4 out of 5, something like that. And that one just destroyed some shops and people and civilians and all that, because that's what the Russians are doing according to these guys. And the same is true for the other ones. But I think that if I were to see who's exaggerating more, I'm sorry, but based on what I'm reading, these guys way much exaggeration than these guys. These guys call the Ukrainians, this side here, call the Russians criminals, call them Russians. They might be, but they say like, zip it, no, we're not like the perfect army. Let me play some for you. So this is it, 7,500 personnel wounded and killed, according to the Russians. What I usually do, I divide it by 3 when it's like this, when the Russians are claiming these are the Ukrainian losses, I divide it by 3, even though probably for the Russians I will divide it by 2. When it's the Ukrainians say, hey, this is the Russian losses, I will divide it by 3. That's how I observed based on my information and my assessment. And when the Russian says, when they say we advanced this much, again, I divided by 2. When the Ukrainians say, well, we advanced by this much, I divided by 3. So it's 3 versus 2. According to my studies, assessments, reading. I mean, it's just reading and you see a pattern, and you verify and say, wait a minute, these guys are really, yeah, really. It's a war. What do you want? They lie more than they usually lie. Why? Because it's life and death situation over there. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.